I can have your attention, please. Just a few announcements before we begin the services for Mr. Richard Kosmacher. We want to welcome everyone here in the sanctuary as well as the many people that are attending this service remotely. Just a gentle reminder for those of you present in the sanctuary, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. The interment will take place at Rose Hill Cemetery in Chicago, and our procession will form facing south on Pine Grove, so in front of the synagogue, Pine Grove, facing south. So I know many of you are parked in the parking lot or in remote areas. We will make sure that we have your car properly marked with a orange funeral sticker, and some of you will have a magnetic flag on top of your vehicle as well. Please stay as close as safety will permit to the car in front of you to avoid large gaps in the procession on the way to the cemetery. The Shiva will be at the Kosmacher Stern residence at 4518 North Whipple Street in Chicago today from 6 to 8 p.m. with a minyan at 7:30 p.m. And for the rest of the Shiva days and times, please refer to your service folder that you received. For those of you viewing online, that information is on the Chicago Jewish Funerals website. Officiating today is Rabbi Michael Siegel, Rabbi Dror Chankin-Gould, and Cantor Rachel Brook. And after the service, we'll ask the pallbearers to step forward to help escort Richard's casket from the sanctuary. They will be Joe Grant, Fred Weber, Joe Grossman, Ian Morris, Steve Coleman, and Tom DeKoven. Has everyone rise at this time as the family enters the sanctuary?
Friends, you may be seated. In times of joy and in times of sorrow, our people has looked to the book of Psalms for solace, strength, to guide our steps in the most difficult of moments. And as we gather to pay tribute to the memory of Richard Kosmacher, we acknowledge that we are in one of those moments. We will begin with Psalm 121, and it is our honor to call upon Rabbi Bill Seamers, married to Debbie Stern, Melissa's sister, a brother-in-love, who will honor us this morning.
Shela malot esachena eharim Ein Yavo Esri me'im Adonai, Osei shamayim va'aretz, Al yitein lamut raglecha, Al yonum shomrecha, Hine lo yamum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomerecha, Adonai sildecha ayad yeminecha. Yomam Hashem mishloyachecha, ve'yareach balayva. Adonai yishmorecha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor seitecha uvoecha, ve'ata v'yad olam. The Psalm of Ascent. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not rest. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai will be your guardian. Adonai will be your shade at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all evil. He will guard your life. The Lord will guard your going and your coming from now and forever.
Thank you, Rabbi. The 23rd Psalm.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לו אחסר, בינות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני, נפשי שובב ינחני במגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בקץ על מוות, לא אירא רק אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב בחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני, לאורך ימים.
Please join me as we look to the inner page of our booklets. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. On this difficult day, we find ourselves walking on that same road with King David through the valley of the shadow. And as we walk together, each person in this room has their own special memory of Richard that we carry with ourselves this day in our hearts. Each of us feels a particular gratitude for having had the privilege of Richard Kosmacher in our lives. But it is Richard's beloved family, his truly beloved family, that carries the weight of memory and the pain of this day most acutely. And so, on this day, we look to you, Melissa, and we pray for your comfort in these difficult days. To Gabe, to Evan, beloved sons. We also acknowledge Faith, who has been such a special friend to this family. On this day, we remember parents, Kenny and Millie Kosmacher. Also a father in love, Harold Stern. And a beloved nephew, Jeff Stern, who are with us in memory. To siblings, to Karen and her husband Robert, to Stephen, to Jeff, pray that God will give you strength during these difficult days. And to beloved family members, to Mark and Carrie, to David and Kathy, to Debbie and to Rabbi William, to Cindy and to David, and a beloved mother in love, Judy Stern, to nieces and nephews, Cassie and her husband Rich, Bella and Sophie, Michael and his wife Michelle, Ryan, Rebecca, and Daniel and Zachary and Seth, and to extended family and to all of the friends in this room who also feel in some way that they were privileged to be part of Richard's family. We are so very sorry for the pain that we all bear today. We have a tradition of tearing a ribbon, of cutting something on a day like today, and it feels especially meaningful to acknowledge that which has been literally torn away from us. And our tradition also wisely instructs us to recite a blessing in this very painful moment, to remind us that we are not allowed to forget the blessing that Richard's life represented, represents, and will continue to represent in memory. So we invite family members wearing a ribbon to please rise. Recite this blessing after me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. Praise to you, book of Job, we are told the story of a person who suffered in life, who had very hard questions for the Holy One, for the unfairness that he suffered. There were those who came to Job and said, Job, life is pain and sorrow without light and joy. And Job responded and said, should I only take the good without the more challenging? Somehow I hear Richard's voice in there somewhere. And then Job said these words, which I'm going to invite everyone to repeat after me. Adonai Natan. Adonai Lakach. Yehi Shem. Adonai Morah. God has given. God has taken away. Praise be the name of the Lord. The rabbis have a saying, Yeshuot Adonai beheref ayin. The salvation of God comes in the blink of an eye. This was their response to the story of Esther and how quickly darkness turned to light. Salvation came in an unexpected moment. Today, all of us can attest to the opposite being true as well. Beheref ayin. In the blink of an eye, tragedy can strike. And everything can change. That was all it took. In one moment, Richard was with his family in Champaign getting ready to celebrate Gabe's graduation. Evan's graduation. Richard had such immense pride in all of Evan's accomplishments. In one moment, Richard was enjoying his beloved family. Melissa, his life's partner, is stalwart at his side as always. And Gabe, the son who made him so very proud. In one moment, Richard was receiving immense satisfaction from his work in semi-retirement. A substitute teacher in Chicago public schools, as a bike ambassador for the city of Chicago, teaching bicycle safety and giving riding lessons across the city that he loved. Each day he had a new story of a child or an adult that he had taught to ride a bicycle. It was such a perfect role for Richard. And beheref ayin, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. And now we gather in disbelief at how such a vibrant, life-affirming, joyful, loving, and caring man with a smile that reflected his seemingly endless joie de vivre is suddenly gone from us physically. It simply makes no sense. It's irrational. Beheref ayin, it all changed in the blink of an eye. There is no question that Richard Kosmacher died tragically. It is sad beyond words. But we would do a great disservice to the man if what took place beharif ein in that blink of an eye became our focus this morning. Richard died tragically, but his life was anything but a tragedy. Today is not about the shock that we are feeling or the sense of unreality that we are experiencing in this moment. It's about how this man deserved to be remembered. Look around this room for a moment. Each of us shares something remarkable. All of us have been touched in some very deep way by the caring of Richard Kosmacher. All of us. A man who embraced life with such gusto, who loved deeply and built such a wonderful life with Melissa, Gabe, and with Evan, who made family his priority, who valued each one of his myriad of friends and friends yet to be, whose ambitious bicycle trips took him on remarkable journeys, whose eye captured so much beauty in this world through the lens of a camera, whose enthusiasm for new ideas was utterly contagious, whose kindness was unparalleled, who cared passionately about the world and was a passionate fighter for justice for every person. Richard was committed with his whole being to do whatever he could to repair this world. Richard was a man who literally scaled great heights in his life, and he should be remembered on this day as one who was in the ascent when he died. I offer you a lesson from our Torah reading this week that speaks directly to the man that we remember this day. One lesson is about how to properly count a person. How do you make someone feel counted? And the other lesson is about the power of blessing and how to share them. We're towards the beginning of the book of Numbers, and our portion, Naso, continues the theme of the census. Here the Torah uses an unusual word for counting, se'u et rosh. Lift up a person's head. To lift up the head of another person is to take the time to see their face, to appreciate that person's unique qualities, to treat a person as something more than a number, but as a wondrous human being. That was Richard. That was Richard. Everyone here knows what I'm talking about. The manner in which Richard would look at you, the way that he would connect with you. When Richard asked you how you were, you knew that it was not a social nicety. He was intensely interested in knowing the answer, and he was relentless until he got the real answer. You couldn't miss just how much he cared. In our conversation yesterday, Evan and Gabe talked about how deeply they were affected by their father's example with other people, how they watched him looking out for the person who might be at that gathering alone, the one not speaking to anyone. Richard made it his mission to spend time with that person and ensure that they would be part of things. This is what it means to be a person, Se'uat Rosh, who lifts up the head of another person, who sees their face, who feels what's going on inside of them, to connect with them. For Richard's two sons, their father modeled behavior that they now practice as well. They honor their father as Richard honors and honored his father, who died too young. And this is one of the many ways that Richard Kosmacher will live on, in memory, but also adapting those lessons that he taught with his life into our own. I think of the ways that Melissa, Evan, and Gabe cared for Richard in those devastating days after the accident. Melissa, you were so, and have been, so remarkably strong, so clear-eyed throughout. So Melissa. How you raised Richard's face up and did everything to care for him, holding on to hope, holding on to life until the full reality of his injuries became clear. And then Melissa, Gabe, and Evan, they loved Richard enough to let him go. You honored Richard by ensuring that his last act be one of giving life to others. His organs were donated, and though there are those whose lives have been changed because of that generous act, and others who will yet be impacted by Richard's life, his legacy continues. The other aspect of this week's parashah is the priestly blessing. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. 3 words. May God bless you and guard you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. 5 words. May God lift up the divine countenance to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. 7 words. May God turn the divine face toward you and grant you peace. The blessings ascend, the wholeness of the number 7, the number of creation. And to be sure, Richard was that ascending blessing who would come to a good and whole place in his life. But what captures my attention is the manner in which the priests offered that blessing. They would extend their hands in the shape of the letter Shin, standing for Shaddai, the name of God. The lesson that the Torah teaches is that the priests were the vehicle for God's blessing. Richard reminds us that you do not have to be a priest to share a blessing in this world. Hands extended to others serve as that blessing with that remarkable openness that Richard demonstrated each and every day, that authenticity, that caring, that humility. I ask the people in this room to take a moment and reflect on the ways that Richard was a blessing to you. We share that gift together, the blessing of Richard's friendship, the blessing of Richard's love, the blessing of Richard's caring. The Aharon. Richard Kosmacher was taken from us physically in the blink of an eye. But what remains is an example of how to lift up the heads of others in life and make them feel loved, make other people feel counted. What remains is the many blessings that he leaves. a man in the ascent, with hands outstretched, continuing to bless others until the very end and beyond. This is how this man, this extraordinary human being, Richard Kosmacher, Ruve, Ben Kalman Vimalka, deserves to be remembered this day. It will be our honor today to hear from family members as they pay tribute to Richard's memory. We hear first from Larry Hammer, a beloved cousin.
Good morning.
Can you just step closer to the microphone, please?
Good morning. Before I start, I think Richard would want all of us to pause and smile, just like he would smile at every one of us every time we saw him. I'm honored to take a few moments to provide a few memories that are ever present in my mind. It's an honor to do this today. I do have so many wonderful memories, but I think many of you probably knew Richard better than I did. And you knew why that generosity of spirit made him such a mensch. I have many wonderful memories of visits with Richard and Melissa in Chicago, while watching Gabe and Evan grow up from childhood through their B'nai Mitzvot and on to their wonderful careers as young adults. There are a few times that really stand out, though, memories that I'll never forget. The first of these occurred in his teens after a very long bicycle journey, in which he blessed me with a visit in California to my home in Los Altos Hills, at that time not far from Palo Alto or San Francisco. He was such a young man and so dedicated. He enjoyed the thrill of cycling through the coastal range out to the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and back many times, a trip that I was never quite brave enough to make. But for many years after that visit, he spoke of the convertible Carmen Ghia that we offered at his disposal for him to enjoy during that visit. And he often remembered that extra little fun. Later in life, I have many memories of witnessing the joy Richard experienced as a father. I joined him with Melissa at baseball practices. I even remember a music recital. Two memories also stand out related to Richard's passion about the environment. First, in the car share model that he promoted, and later in a rural community in Central California, where he tried to bring that model to a very rural community. When I first visited him at his office at IGO, he drove me around town, proud to show me all of the cars that he had been able to procure and place in important spots on the streets of the city. Years later, Richard visited with me and with my wife, Judy, and talked of and then continued to pursue his passion in a funded grant to bring car share to a rural community where people didn't have access to public transportation or even to their own vehicles. And this is a part of California that you may know is known for huge ranches huge farms, and long distances in between. Another favorite memory that I'm going to share is a story actually best told by Judy and our dear friend Ben Beckman, now 86 years old. They were driving back to the West Coast from Ben's first trip across the country, where he visited Niagara Falls for the first time, and they stopped to visit Richard and Melissa on their way back out west. And to this day, Ben cannot stop raving about the barbecued chicken and couscous that he and Melissa prepared that night. In fact, Judy just told me last night that they were concerned that the food was all gone before Evan got home. But thankfully, he had another option for dinner. Ben would be here today if his health would have allowed. So I know that many today will remark on Richard's huge smile, infectious enthusiasm. The first time he met Judy, we were at Kingston Mines, and the first thing that we noticed was that big smile. And that was the first of many times that I had an opportunity to enjoy music with Richard, alone or with Melissa, at music festivals or elsewhere. And thankfully, Melissa and Richard joined us in San Francisco a few years later, and we were able to enjoy the city and one part of the wine country. And I think, Evan, it's your turn next, because we did have a wonderful visit from Gabe and Faith not too long ago, and you better come back. So I'm proud to say that Richard was my dear cousin, that we shared a very brotherly affection for one another, and that his memory will truly be forever a blessing in my life and the lives of those who have been fortunate enough to know him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Next, it will be our honor to hear from Paul Miller, Richard's best friend from college.
I brought my wife because I'm sort of like a kugel, like fresh out of the oven. I'm a little wheezy and loose. And if I dissolve into like a puddle, she's gonna step right in for me, just like Melissa would do for Richard and Richard did for Melissa. So we're gonna start with a poem or a reading, from James Joyce. And Pam's going to read it.
He was alone, he was unheeded, happy and near to the wild heart of life. He was alone and young and willful and wild-hearted, alone amidst a waste of wild air and brackish waters and the sea harvest of shells and tangle that veiled gray sunlight. James Joyce.
It makes sense to have a Joyce reading. This is in a book that I don't collect much, but I have collected. It's a out-of-print Sierra Club book, and it tells the story of two brothers who traveled the West together. And I'm going to read this slowly and hopefully get through it. It's the story of two brothers exploring the West, this book. It's called On the Loose. It has a sad epilogue as one of the brothers drowns on a wild river. To me, it's the story of two brothers filling their lungs with the wonders of life. The smell of ocean decay, the burn of the sun, sleeping under the stars. As for Richard and myself, it was a chapter in our friendship. We took many trips together. Our first was a trip to Alaska, the summer after our junior year of college. We drove up to Alcan, fished, walked on glaciers, and took the ferry from Skagway back to Seattle, where we had shipped our bikes. We rode to Mount Rainier and down the coast of Oregon, and when we made it, we headed over the coastal range through the redwoods to the Sierra Nevada. We were weary but happy. After hauling ourselves up the backside of Half Dome in Yosemite, we met my brother in Tahoe, where I bought his old truck. Then Richard and I headed to Wyoming, to the Tetons, and on to Yellowstone, where we soaked in the hot springs before returning to Madison for our final year. Richard would go on to graduate. I would be one credit short. This was a summer measured in how many days we spent outside. It was one thing, we were connecting it together, and we had quite a time. The next summer, we planned to tour Europe on bike. When Richard's dad got sick, he stayed behind. 3 months later, he picked me up from Kennedy Airport. I remember Richard was clearly heartbroken over his dad's poor health and was sad to have missed out on Europe. But he asked me lots of questions and gave me a ride to my childhood home in New Jersey to see my parents. My mom loved Richard. All moms loved Richard. He ate everything she fed him, and she wasn't a very good cook. It didn't matter. I returned to Wisconsin, and Richard stayed in New York. The following spring, I drove back east to see my folks. I bought a new truck, and Richard bought my old one from me. Pickup trucks were sort of currency between us. We hopped in my brand new truck and headed south to an island off the coast of Virginia to see the wild horses that lived there, to take a long walk and sleep on the beach. Richard drove that old Ford that he bought from me. It was a 4-wheel drive, short box, 3-speed with a granny gear for years in and around New York City. It was a truck that was not made for New York City. We went on to take other trips together on foot, by bike, on raft. We witnessed a lot of beauty and wonder. The next chapter found us living in different places, but not far away from one another, so we could spend holidays together and watch each other's kids grow up. I live on a farm in Wisconsin, and Richard in Chicago. Richard was still doing it. His environment was this very real and honest city of Chicago. He got up and rode his bike, jockeying with cars and buses, sucking in his exhaust, and undoubtedly cursing drivers. He felt the hot, the cold, and the wet streets. He rode to schools all over the city to act as a substitute teacher to elementary school children, and once again he witnessed the wonder and beauty of life in those kids. Every other week, he would text me with some story of how the kids were cracking him up. Unbeknownst to me, Richard told these stories and others from our trips together over the years, or according to Melissa, ad nauseum. Some of you may have heard them before. I'm glad to know that this time together meant so much to him, as it did and does to me. My memories of our trips are woven with Richard's easy smile, genuine curiosity for the world, and laughter shared between us and whoever else we could rope in. And then my daughter wrote at the bottom of this, the beauty we found together out west and all across the land could be found anywhere. And Richard knew how to do that. Here's to being on the loose. Here's my best friend, Richard. Some of you might say, hey, Richard was my best friend. And the answer is true. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
We call on Mark Stern, loving brother-in-law.
Hey guys, as Richard would say. That Richardism will live with me forever. I thought I was getting off easy today by being the oldest in my family and not having to speak behind all the people that are going to speak better, more reflective. I was very wrong, starting with the rabbi, Larry, and Paul. Mine will be much less reflective and more just about Richard like everybody else knew. So there's many Richardisms that will always live with me. A couple others will include directions anywhere. And his constant smile and upbeat personality. And it's just amazing, like reading Caring Bridge and hearing today, it's like, I think it's a rare person where everybody can use the same words to describe Richard. And that's just the way he was, just as true and authentic as anybody could get. And before Melissa asked if I wanted to say a few words today, I had thought about this and how easy it would be to talk about Richard. It's just, I think everybody can feel the same way. As everyone here agrees, Richard was just an amazing, kind, fun, insightful, and engaging person, and both a brother-in-law and a close friend to me. Spending time with Richard was always enjoyable and something to look forward to. As he came with a smile, always asked what was going on with me and my family. And we would always talk about an interesting topic, current event, something Chicago, or something our boys had accomplished. Richard was always interested in what you and I were doing, and we'd always talk about what many of you were doing. In the last year, I always enjoyed when Richard would substitute teach at the Ogden School, just down the block from me. It would always guarantee a visit to my apartment, a great conversation, and likely a hard-earned drink after his day with 30 second graders. When describing Richard, the thought of a true mensch and a bit of a Renaissance man would always float to the top. One common theme from close friends and unrelated family who had the opportunity to be with Richard at different occasions was they felt like they were the only person in the room when they were talking to him. And I think we can all relate to that. Although Richard is no longer with us physically, Richard will live within me forever, and his life was truly a blessing to everyone here and many, many others.
It'll be our honor to hear from David Stern, a brother-in-law.
What he said. That was so beautiful. As was everybody's words today about Richard. And thank you for starting with having a smile, because that was Richard. He was a smile and joy and laughter. I'm also honored to speak today. And when I was asked, I said I could speak about Richard for hours. And I was told, well, we all could, but you have about 3 minutes. And I don't even know if that was like 3 real minutes or 3 football minutes. But what I want to say is the conversations Richard and I had about the 3 most important things in his life, which was Gabe, Evan, and my sister Melissa. When he talked about them, you could just, the passion and the admiration and the love. When you spoke about these 3 special people. And just one of the last times, I saw him this year. It started with, Richard's smile and that booming voice. Dave! What do you think about your nephews, huh? How about that Gabe? Oh my God, a mathematician? What? Check out the brain on that guy. I don't know where he got it. It wasn't me. It had to be your sister. And then he goes right into Evan. Dave, do you know what Evan is doing this summer? He's up in Door County. Have you been to Door County, Dave? It's beautiful, and he's waiting tables, okay? During the day, if he's not working, he's playing sports, and at night, he's waiting tables. Oh my God, Dave, did that guy make a summer for himself or what? And can you imagine being lucky enough to be put in Evan's section? I mean, you're on vacation. You're having a great time, and all of a sudden, you get sat in Evan's section? Oh my God, how good an evening are you going to have? And, Dave, they're making real money out there too. And then with Melissa, it was these little things. No matter what Melissa did, Richard had a big comment about it. After dinner, it's me and him. He's like, "Oh my God, Dave, did you know your sister was such a good cook? And she put a full day in work and cooked this delicious meal. Come on, Dave." And the thing that he said to me, and he probably said it to you, Mark, and to everybody else in our family, and he said this over and over again for as long as I can remember. He would say, "Dave, I don't know how I got so lucky to marry your sister." And he said that all the time. And when I look back at these 28 years of having that brother-in-law, and Mark, as you said, just a best friend, I have to say that, it's not just he being the one that got so lucky to marry my sister. I think all of us in our family, we were also, and we have been so fortunate and so lucky to have Richard marry our sister.
We invite Jeff Kosmacher to come forward now.
Oh boy.
Jeff, I'm gonna put this on you to make sure everybody can hear, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Just turn it on.
I guess you got to take in all your faces for a moment. I prepared a few things to say, but, well, first of all, I was just saying to the rabbi earlier that this synagogue meant so much to our brother and Melissa. I'm glad to have been here before to celebrate their Bar Mitzvahs, so that this is not the only physical association I have with this place, but the community that Rich and Melissa and the boys were able to be part of here, I know was extremely crucial for Rich, and I knew that this community really understood Rich and Melissa and the boys, and I knew that the level of commitment that they brought to this place was such a reflection of who they are. So thank you, Ansha Emmett. And back at you, Stearns. The absolute joy that I know my brother experienced being part of the Stern family was so uplifting for me, because I know how fundamentally happy it made him, and we know how much family meant to Rich. So in addition to our family, to have the bosom of the Stearns, for Rich to be also such an important part of, and for you all to so embrace him. And the nephews and the nieces. I guess there's just one niece, right? There's just Rebecca. Is it? Are there two? Right? Oh, no, I'm saying in the Stern family, right? Anyway, so thank you, Ansha Emmett, and thank you, Stearns. One other thing I want to say before I talk about what I've written is that some of the most challenging conversations that I had with my brother was helping him to take stock of himself. And it often happened, probably most often happened, when we were working on a resume. You know, think of the resume, like where you're trying to, okay, what can I highlight about myself that'll get somebody's attention so they'll want to hire me, right? And hearing Paul talk, you know, or other things that, you know, Larry, you'll hear other things. I'm only beginning to discover things that my brother accomplished, you know, and I'm 62 years old now. I've been his brother for 62 years. And I know his spirit is here, and I'm glad that his spirit will be here to hear all these people talk about the remarkable abilities of my brother, the things that and also when the rabbi called into the room at the hospital, he used the metaphor of a candle, and that you take a candle and then the candle can light many other candles. So here's what I would want to add. It's not just the light and the warmth that the candle transfers, it's what you do with the light and the warmth. And that's what I think adds to what made Rich special. It wasn't just that he was a bright light and a smiling guy, but he also took all of that and applied it to things that really mattered to him. So that's a little brotherly message to my brother, wherever the hell you are, Rich. I'm sorry for that. That's the wrong word in this place. Forgive me. And I know I'm on 3 minutes, and I've disciplined myself pretty well on what I've written to about a little over, close to 4 minutes. Okay. All right, here it goes. Excuse me. Hello to all of my fellow lovers of Richard Kosmacher. Or, more simply, I will address each of you now as a Rich lover. You may have become familiar with this term. I was inspired to create this term last week at my brother's bedside when I had the fortune of being invited to be a guest blogger on the Caring Bridge. So we are holding in our hearts what we love about Rich. And by the way, I was less likely to call him Richard. He was Rich to me. And by the way, even adult friends of his now still call him Richie, a few of them, including some of our relatives. So we're holding in our hearts what we love about Rich. And in his honor, I have a suggestion for all of us Rich lovers. It's a bit of a call to action, if you're up to it. Whichever quality of Rich you most love, bring more of it into our world. Because he connected with all of us individually. So take whatever it is from that experience that stands out the most, and let's all up ourselves with that addition of Rich to who we are out in the world. Please consider doing this. I don't mean to be pushy about it. And let's really pause to consider this. What quality of Rich will you choose to show more in your life? Take your time to think about this. This is an important decision. And I'll just say this. From experience, if you commit to doing this, I also suggest that you tell at least one person what you're committing to. That way you have someone to help you keep track of your progress. It's not just individual, it's the connection. That's one of our brother's greatest blessings was the Rich the connector. So in my remaining time, I want to share a few things I love about Rich. You know, the list, what do I have, about 7 items? I won't take too much longer. Could have been 1,007, 10,007. And I want to share a few things I love about Rich. Some will be things many of you wouldn't know because you began to know him at the University of Wisconsin, or since he moved to Chicago, his beloved adopted home. So here goes in no particular order. I love his tennis backhand stroke. It's smooth and consistent, and he can even crank up the pace of the ball with this effortless stroke. In 50 years, I haven't maintained a backhand that comes even close. I love the memory of Rich developing photos in the tiny dark room he created in our house. Steve, Rich, and I lived in the upstairs of our house in Cedarhurst, and he carved out this little space. I think Steve said it was part of the attic. I remember the satisfaction in Rich's face when the images emerged and fixed to the paper, as they say in photography. And personally, I thought I was watching my brother perform magic. So I was, 10, 11, 12 years old at this time. I love that Rich arranged for a Nobel Peace Prize winner and a Pulitzer Prize winning novelist to speak at his Joy of Ireland store in Chicago. It's hard to imagine Rich being more proud and more elevated to have John Hume and Frank McCourt in the midst of his store. Maybe some of you, were any of you at either of those events? If you wanted to raise your hand or share, well, Melissa was there. I mean, Frank McCourt and John Hume, I wish I was there, but we can only imagine what that made Richard feel like. That he added that element to what was easily just a conventional retail store. I love the way Rich looks in a suit. In Rich's case, the man makes the suit, not vice versa. And I'm wearing one of his ties to celebrate Rich's style. I love remembering Rich hold our daughter Bella for the first time when she was about a week old. He was both the first Kosmacher and the first out-of-towner to be with our first child. Of course, Rich was beaming, proud of me, exalted by Bella. He was also a little awkward holding a newborn, as was I. What first-time parent, especially the dads, are not awkward holding their newborn? Precious, you don't want to have anything happen. But with Amy's advice, we got much better at holding her. I love that Rich, the music lover, and Rich, the collector of recordings, had a close role in envisioning and producing 2 music compilations on CD. One of which I hold in my hand, IGO Audio Emissions. Some of you may have this in your collection. Rich lives in Chicago. I used to live in Madison, now I live in New York. So this is an easy way to commune with Rich, is to play one of these 2 CDs. My brother, Rudy Van Gelder, I mean, if you know how much jazz means in our family, and my brother, the music producer, this is when I talk about my brother Rich and him not thoroughly taking stock. Did he ever think of listing this on his resume? Rich! The project was an inspired idea to market IGO. You've heard about IGO. And there are many IGO and shared mobility and people here. IGO, the nonprofit car sharing service in Chicago. Rich's leadership there, Rich, brought enormous membership growth to this little nascent, upstart, nonprofit car sharing service. Okay, last one. I love the role model and big brother Rich will always be for me. In a letter to me just before I started college, and just after he had graduated, he wrote, "Jeffrey, I have a lot of confidence in you." Okay, you had me there, Rich. "You are a good man. I can tell through your letters that your vision is widening and your dreams are getting more recognizable. I love you, Richard. Your spirit will always live in me."
Thank you. It will be our honor and privilege to hear Bella Kosmacher play on Jeff Stern's guitar. Jeff had passed away 2 years ago of kidney cancer. Bella?
I have always looked up to Uncle Richard as a dreamer, someone deeply curious about the world and keen to find communal solutions to its many challenges. His work in cultural exchange and sustainability, and more recently in early childhood education, a craft very close to my heart, have inspired my own path. I'm honored to share this song about one of the most important gifts of childhood, the ability to dream big, which Uncle Richard so beautifully embodied in his life. The first gift is a soft ball of yarn you could hold in your hand, the world in your palm. Hold it, roll it, play. Your mother won't let it get away. The second gift is a sphere and a cube made out of wood. Notice the difference. One is familiar and one points away to people and things beyond you. The third gift is 8 smaller cubes made of beech wood. Now you can build, stack them, watch them grow, teeter and fall. The bliss of impermanence, learn when you're small. Lines, curves, faces, your fingers, the floor, and a curious mind. possibilities. Just ask Frank Lloyd Wright. The simplest gifts give the most delight. Gifts 4, 5, 6 increase in complexity. New shapes abound. What could they be? A flying machine or a train through the desert? A lotus's petals, an insect's antenna? A new written language or schematics for a functioning tractor beam? The only parameters, what you can dream. Lines, curves, faces, your fingers, the floor, and a curious mind. Limitless possibilities, just ask Frank Lloyd Wright. The simplest gifts give the most delight. The simplest gifts give the most delight.
Thank you, Bella. We call upon Carrie Stern, a sister-in-law.
First of all, Bella, I don't even know what to say. It was just so beyond beautiful. And thank you. My dearest, sweet brother-in-law, Richard, I will always remember the day you walked into our lives. Remember? We were celebrating a holiday at my house, and Melissa brought you to dinner. From the very first time I met you, your warmth and kindness shone through. You had a smile on your face, and I rarely remember a time being in your presence when you didn't have that smile. But your smile wasn't just any smile. It was one of those smiles that made us feel seen, heard, and valued. It was never about you. It was always about the people you loved. You gave of yourself with your time, heart, warmth, and unconditional love. You listened, cared, and loved. It made each of us feel special, as if we were the most important person in your life. Richard, your memory will always live on in the hundreds of lives you touched. Not just your family and friends, but also the countless people you and Melissa impacted through your compassion, generosity, kindness, and giving nature. But Richard, nothing brought you more joy and happiness than Gabe and Evan. I remember the last time we were together, you and I had a heart-to-heart conversation, and you shared with me how incredibly proud you were of the boys, not just because of all that they accomplished, but because at the core, they are the good people. We talked about how Gabe and Evan are kind and compassionate, thoughtful and giving. I pray I remembered to tell you that it was because there couldn't be two better role models than you and Melissa. Richard, we will miss you every day. We will forever honor you by following in your footsteps. We will do what Jeff said. Your love will live on in the way we treat each other. We will give from our hearts. We will make everyone around us feel valued, cared about, and loved. We will always treat others with kindness. We will do our very best, even on the hardest of days, to wear that same beautiful smile. We will do this because you showed us how. We will remember that the smallest gesture of kindness can change a life, just like you forever changed ours. You are so deeply loved. I believe with all of my heart that you are with Jeff. Two beautiful souls, both gone far too soon. I know that the two people I loved beyond words are now together in a place where there is no suffering, only love, peace, kindness, and compassion. May you forever rest in peace, my sweet, sweet brother-in-law. Forever and always, your Aunt Carrie.
We invite Michael Stern forward, beloved nephew.
I feel very fortunate to not only have had Uncle Richard in my family, but also to have grown up near Chicago, where he was a constant presence in my life. We have endless memories of holidays and celebrations. Just a couple months ago, we celebrated Passover with Uncle Richard's 30-minute Seder that took almost an hour between our banter, countless interruptions, and laughter. When discussing with the rest of the Stern cousins, there were clear themes similar to everyone's words today. That everyone recognized about Uncle Richard. He's extremely family-oriented, incredibly welcoming, and the ultimate role model. Uncle Richard has always been extremely dedicated to family, especially the kids. Some of our most distinct memories include Uncle Richard volunteering for the kids' table as the sole supervisor for the 9 cousins. Whether it was football on the beach, kayaking excursions, or ice cream runs, he was always leading the way. He's really always been a teacher. It's unimaginable to think of a family gathering without Uncle Richard there planning activities to keep us kids entertained, even as adults. His ability to engage with every family member is a testament to how much he cared about each individual. And this love and compassion spread further to his loved ones' loved ones. He had an incredible way of making everybody in a room feel welcomed as if they've always been his family. This kindness and warmth extended to his many friends and communities, spreading his energy and exuberance in every room he stepped into. We should all strive to make each other feel welcome, just as Uncle Richard would. His impact on his children was apparent from an early age. 6-year-old Gabe navigated his 16-year-old cousin Jeff around the streets of Chicago, a skill he could have only inherited from one person. Evan has always been a ball of energy. After playing tennis with Evan and Uncle Richard for an hour, I was worn out while the two of them were ready to plan the next activity. Uncle Richard always had a very, very special relationship with Gabe and Evan, and that's apparent as his loving and welcoming nature is evident in both of them. Uncle Richard is one of my biggest role models, and I hope to one day be anything close to the dad that he was for Gabe and Evan. We will miss him so much, but he will live on through the impact he's had on each of us and the care that he showed to his family and so many communities.
We call on Steve Kosmacher, beloved brother.
Hi, everyone. I'm just in awe of this assembly of people here. I was blessed with some talents in life, but not with the talent of public speaking like my brother Jeffrey and like Rich was also. And by the way, most of you know him as Richard. I called him Rich, he called me Steve. Anyway, I'm going to do my best here. Under normal circumstances, I'm not comfortable speaking in front of people, but even when I'm not emotionally overwrought, so I'm going to do my best. I was going to start off by talking about the unfairness and the tragedy of Richard's death. And Rabbi Siegel said most of what I was going to say to start, but I want to add a couple of things to it. There's no one on the planet who deserved the fate that my brother suffered less than he did. And we here, and I believe we are all good people, likewise did not deserve to suffer his loss. And as we know, the universe can be very random and very cruel, but we have a way of countering that. And that way is to be constantly mindful and appreciative of the good things that we have in our lives and the people we care about, making the most of the blessings they represent, because as we know, at any moment they could be gone. Simply put, Richard was the dearest person in the world to me. He was as sweet and kind-hearted a person as any of us will ever know. He was also just an all-around great guy. The only way anyone who knew him could not like him, let alone love him, was if they had some kind of deficiency in their own heart. Most of you know him only as an adult, but as a little kid, he was kind of angelic. Fairly early on, someone in our family, I think it was our Aunt Lois, my father's sister, dubbed him the kid with the $1 million smile. And it stuck. And as you all know, he never lost it. Growing up together, we were just brothers with all that entails. But as we got older, we became friends, true friends, with all kinds of shared interests, like music, jazz especially, outdoor recreation, sports, watching and playing, literature, and politics. I considered him my best friend. We were certainly kindred spirits. Our relationship was complex. We had our differences and disagreements, and sometimes got into stuff, but our core bond was unbreakable, and I always knew that. Unfortunately, as adults, except for a couple of years in the early 80s when he came back to New York after his stint in Madison and started his business at the South Street Seaport, we never lived close by, but that didn't really get in the way. We talked regularly. We wrote letters. Remember letters? Sometimes long letters with all kinds of philosophizing on top of just sharing what was going on in each other's lives. And he moved around a lot because of his business. But wherever he moved, I would always go and visit. Those visits were something I greatly looked forward to, and they never disappointed. He would, of course, show me around this new place that he was living. We'd go out at night and eat cheap ethnic food when there still was such a thing. Catch some live music, maybe shoot some pool, drink lots of beer. Sometimes he had a girlfriend who would join us, but more often than not, it was just two single guys on the loose. Our most memorable time together was in 1982, when I was 26 and he was 23. I flew out to Madison and spent a couple of days hanging out with a great group of friends he had, including Paul, who was there at the time. Then we flew out to Denver, where we embarked on a two-week car camping trip in the Colorado Rockies. We had no itinerary. We just went where the wind blew us, including a brief excursion to Moab, Utah. Overall, despite a tiff here and there, we had a blast. Taking in the breathtaking scenery as we toured around, setting up camp, making fires, cooking out, going on some amazing hikes, and having a baseball catch wherever we could find a spot. This was a family tradition started by our father, and whenever any of us got together, whenever we were going to be visiting, it was always, don't forget to bring your glove. While in Moab, we also went whitewater rafting on the Colorado River. It's just a bundle of fun. Richard had aspirations to write in those days, and he kept a journal of the trip, part of which was later published in a small newspaper in Madison, having been championed by a columnist. And Jeff, I don't remember how he connected with him, but somehow.
He just wrote to him.
Oh, he wrote to him. Anyway, Rich, putting himself out there. Anyway, I have a copy of some excerpts from the journal, and I'm just going to read a couple of short paragraphs about an all-day hike we took to a place called Navajo Lake. It was a pristine alpine lake, which was actually the source of a fairly large river in Colorado called the Dolores River. And it was set at the base of three just massive stone peaks in the Rockies, one of which I think was something like 14,000 feet high. And where we hiked to was right, the lake was right at the tree line. It was just, you just can't imagine the beauty of it. It just, you had to be there. Anyway, this is from his journal, and it's just a couple of paragraphs. It's almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We've climbed a couple of thousand feet already in the hour and a half that we've been on the trail. There's hardly a cloud in the sky. The sun, cooled by a gentle breeze, bakes our half-naked bodies. The trail has been relatively easy to follow. We're nearly at the tree line now, patches of snow dotting the mountainside. And this was in July, by the way. As the back of my t-shirt attests, our hike has been quite the workout. The only obstacles have been a couple of stream crossings that necessitated negotiating single and double log bridges. Stephen keeps a brisk pace, as there is little slacking off. Except for some pain in my heel, parentheses, the skin is tender, I am physically sound. Lunch is rapidly coming to a close. The water tasted like wine, and the trail mix as appetizing as any gourmet food. Just a few hundred feet more uphill and we'll be over the ridge, looking down on Navajo Lake and out towards some San Juan peaks. We are on our own now, and this is as it should be. My time is limited, so I'll fast forward to Chicago. Of all the places he moved, the best place to visit, and a place that he came to love and truly adopted as his hometown. A place that he also took great pride in showing people around and sharing all the places and things that he loved here. So every year I would come out for either the blues festival or the jazz festival, and we would just do the town. And he was also running a store at that time. He had a lot of responsibilities, but he would carve out time and we would just have fun. And then, of course, he met the love of his life, Melissa, and they proceeded to create their beautiful family, which I believe was his single most important goal in life, to have a family. Spending time with Gabe and Evan when they were boys was pure joy. They were just flat out adorable. And it makes my heart swell now to see how they've grown into such fine young men, so much in the image of their father, who loved them more than anything and was so dedicated to their lives. Having lost my father when I was also in my 20s, I know how hard this loss is going to hit them. I feel for them deeply. I want to remain a presence in their lives, somebody they can reach out to anytime if they need somebody to talk to or some guidance, the guidance they can no longer get from their father. And of course, I also feel deeply for Melissa and how difficult it's going to be to live without Richard there. In closing, I want to reference a famous quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which says, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you lived and lived well." Well, Richard did Ralph one better. Not only did he fulfill that purpose, but he managed to find happiness on top of it. The evening before his accident, he was overheard saying, "This is the happiest I've ever been in my life." His life may have been unfairly cut short, but the impact he had was immense. This gathering today is a testament to the way he touched people and connected with them. There's a gaping hole in the world now where Richard once was. I will always cherish my memories of him, but I'm not sure I'll ever get over the sadness of losing him. Goodbye, my sweet brother.
In our tradition, of all of the 613 mitzvot, the commandments, the hardest one to keep, according to the rabbis, is to honor one's father and mother. The rabbis say that it's the hardest to keep because you can always do more for a parent. I want to say that if any sons ever fulfilled this commandment, it was Gabe and Evan Kosmacher. It is our privilege to hear words from Gabe Kosmacher.
My father was a teacher. For my brother and me, he built a world in which his experience, passion, and knowledge stand as guideposts between which we are free to dictate our lives. These guideposts stand tall and firm and are quite simple in nature. Interest yourself in the lives of others. Show love and compassion and empathy to those you meet. Work to brighten the world. Empower the people around you to fulfill their dreams. My father taught us to live within these guideposts by doing so himself. Within each of his many communities, familial, religious, social, political, his joy of life was infectious, his honest curiosity endearing, his humility admirable. Every child wants to be lauded, loved, and important. My father taught us that through kindness does one achieve these dreams. Guideposts set, my father dedicated himself to the complete support of wherever my brother and I wanted to go and whomever my brother and I wanted to be. He followed us from t-ball game to track meet to tennis match, from art show to fast casual eatery to music recital. He walked with us and biked with us and rebounded for us. He was always there to brighten our day. It was always such a joy to see my father greet a friend, whether for the first time or the nth. He was so excited to relate with people, to hear their stories, to understand their drives. Imposed in my mind are pictures of his love. I picture him in the doorway to our house, smile across his face, welcoming someone in. I picture him sitting in the living room or standing in the yard, chatting with friends, understanding their life. I picture him laughing at the dinner table and jumping up to do the dishes. I picture my brother and me running down the hallway to attack him with hugs after a long day of work. I picture my father with a smile on his face and love in his heart. One of the great joys of my life is to be asked about my father. I get to retell his adventures of youth, or his unique winding careers, or his fanatical athletic devotions, or his encompassing knowledge, or his social involvement. It is a source of immense pride for my brother and I to be the sons of Richard Kosmacher. We are proud of the love in his heart for others and the love he received from friends. We are proud of the kindness, knowledge, and compassion in which he imbued communal relationships. We are proud of his smile and his support, his adventurous tales, and his joy of life. We are proud that he was always drawn to the person with the least around them, if only to make one feel less alone. We are proud of his adaptivity, his observance, his ability to tell people where he is going, where they will be, and how they will both converge. We are proud to be our Father's son, and I can think of no better life than to learn from his teachings and emulate him the best we can.
We call upon Karen Lazar beloved sister, who will read poems written by her son-in-law, Rich.
Good morning, everyone. This is an extraordinary tribute to an extraordinary man. When our father was taken so cruelly from us at such a young age, it was my brother Richard who, of the four of us, had the strength to get up and speak at his funeral. And I knew that to honor that, I had to find the strength to do that today for my brother Richard. And I started trying to think of what I could possibly say. And I've been listening to these words this morning. And it's as if you've all said them all, because you all know him and you loved him, and we will love him forever. And as I struggled to think of what to do today to honor him, God granted me an extraordinary gift. I have two Riches in my life because my daughter Cassie is married to my lovely and wonderful son, Rich, son-in-law. And he was overwhelmed the other night thinking about Richard and his father, who he lost at a young age, and a dear friend that he lost not long ago. And to help him bear his grief, he wrote a poem, and he sent it to me. And I immediately knew that those were the words that I needed to read this morning. And he calls it Summer Sadness, by my beautiful Rich Spiro. The sun rises warm and bright, but the weight of the season hangs heavy. June whispers memories. July carries echoes. August brings the ache of what was lost from sight. I have walked through summers stained with sorrow, watched the world steal the ones I love. Father, brother, uncle, names written in the clouds in the sky, held tight in the warmth of family, but gone from the earth we stand on. Summer was meant to be laughter. Barefoot afternoons, frisbees, and fireflies glowing. But my summers have been goodbyes, a season of parting, a cycle of grief. Yet still we gather. Still we hold hands in the heat, raise glasses, tell stories, paint love across these sunlit days as the cycles repeat. Because even in loss, love remains. Even in sorrow, we honor their names. And though the summer may steal, it can never take the love we built, the bonds that live beyond seasons, beyond time. So we remember, we love, we carry them forward in every sunset, every warm breeze, every song we hear, and remember their laughter. Our love remains. And then I want to close with one other poem. Excuse me just a second. When our mother passed away 10 years ago already, I can't believe that. I read this poem for her, and again, I want to read it today for my beloved Richard. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you, or whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing, is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root, and the bud of the bud, and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that keeps the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart.
Our friend Richard died on Saturday. He left the world the day before Shavuot, the day on which the Jewish people commemorates God's greatest gift, the Torah. There's a beautiful poetry to the fact that Richard's passing is so inextricably linked with the Torah, because the truth is, as you've heard from those who loved Richard, he lived a life of Torah. He lived a life of profound teaching. He lived a life of passionate values. He lived a life of uncompromising morals and unrelenting love. Richard was a physical embodiment of Torah. 2 days after Richard died, in this room and on this bima, we read the 10 Commandments. Richard was my friend and Richard was my teacher. He taught me how to be a father. And Jeff, that's my answer to your question about what to do harder and better. He taught me how to be an activist. He taught me how to navigate Chicago, physically and politically. I miss him so much, along with you. And I want to honor Richard's life of Torah by sharing 10 commandments of Richard Kosmacher. The prophet Micah said, Higid lecha adam ma tov, uma Adonai doresh mimcha, ki im asot mishpat v'avat chesed, v'atznei alechet im Elohecha. You've been told what is good and what God requires of you. Only this: to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with God. Richard agreed. Number 1, do justice. With every bone in his body, Richard believed in doing justice. Even in his death, Richard did justice. Through the gift of hope and organ donation, Richard has already saved 3 lives. And there will be more. That's so Richard. Melissa and Richard met in 1997 at JCUA at an event, Fight for 15, fighting for a living wage. Of course he fell in love while fighting for the minimum wage. Richard and Melissa's marriage was based around fighting for justice. Richard's first commandment is to do justice always and without question. The prophet Micah doesn't only say to do kindness, he tells us to love kindness. As a child, Richard fell in love with kindness. As Melissa says, he got warm fuzzies by helping people out, cleaning out a neighbor's garage, or caddying on the golf course. As Karen says, he was a humanist. He cared about people in a deep, compassionate, and open way. Not only was Richard kind, Richard loved being kind. The second commandment of Richard is to fall in love with kindness. Number 3, walk humbly. When the prophet talks about walking humbly with God, he may as well have been talking about Richard. There's a reason Richard fell in love with a Midwest sensibility, which Jeff mentioned was so refreshing to Richard. In a way, that's code for humility and grace. Richard had very little ego, maybe not enough. He was always very open and open to changing. As Steve said, he was modest and unpretentious and humble. The third commandment of Richard is to walk with humility. 4, care for the earth. The Jewish tradition teaches that humans are responsible for caring for the earth that we have been gifted. We are taught neither to destroy nor spoil the planet, but to guard her and to love her, as he did on those hikes and on those walks. As an outdoor enthusiast, a member of the green team here at Anshe Emet, that led to us composting and thinking about our carbon imprint, and a devotee of sustainable transportation, Richard taught us all that Earth's resources are precious and rare and limited, and that we have to fight to protect them. Number 5, family first. When Melissa first met Richard, she knew he was a family man. That is on full display today from all of the speakers who Richard loved and who love Richard. The 5th commandment of Richard would be to honor parents, kibud av ve'em. Richard honored his mother and father. As Karen shared, when Rich's father died in college, it was he who spoke on behalf of the siblings at the funeral. That act of respect continues to touch and inspire everyone around Richard. But it's not only his parents that Richard put first. Richard so valued his marriage. The 6th commandment of Richard is one that echoes through the words of Genesis. Lo tov le'adam liot levado. It's not good for man to be alone. Richard taught us to cherish our spouses and our romantic partners. Melissa and Richard had real love, devotion, partnership. They had a relationship that they worked on together and a life that they built together. Richard taught us all, through his actions, that marriage is a commitment, a labor of love, and that we have to give it our all. The 7th commandment of Richard, another component of putting family first, is that our essential job is to be the best parents we can be. We are taught by the Torah, V'shinantam levanecha. You have to teach your children. Richard showed us all the Torah of how to be a good father. He did that by being a dugma ishit, a living exemplar. So many of us learned from his Torah of parenting. As Gabe said, Richard did not impose what he wanted. He let his children grow and explore. He trusted them and encouraged them to be passionate. Here at Anshe Emet, Richard modeled parenting as a basketball dad, on the family retreats, and through our connections with Bright Star Church and our trip to the South. Richard walked the walk. He didn't rely on his words as much as his actions. He showed what the best parenting looks like. The eighth commandment of Richard would be to walk like the prophets, to take risks, and as you sang, Bella, to dream big and be ambitious. Richard walked in the footsteps of Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, and the modern Jewish prophets, Abraham Joshua Heschel and Emma Goldman. Richard never stopped dreaming. Richard's ambitions were limitless. Richard took big risks. From his cycling challenges of thousands of miles across the United States and Europe, to scaling the Rockies, to his entrepreneurial endeavors, to taking a risk even in this last chapter of life, to do something new and bold, teaching and coaching, when others would only retreat into what they already knew. Richard was that prophetic voice who reminded us to never be complacent, to always be bold. Number 9, happiness is being of service. We learn from our tradition the phrase, if I am only for myself, then what am I? Richard asked that question every day. The 9th commandment of Richard is, happiness comes by being of service. Richard was happy every day he went to work in the public schools. You'll see at the home all of the pictures his kids drew for him. Richard found happiness, as Evan said, by always putting others ahead of himself. During the years at Drummond, Richard found happiness by serving on the LSC and with the PTO. Richard knew that happiness wasn't a state of mind, it was a choice. And he felt that happiness always by being of service. And number 10, love the stranger. Over and over and over, the Torah tells us, and over and over and over and over, Richard told us, love the stranger as yourself, for you were once strangers. The 10th commandment of Richard Kosmacher is to notice those on the periphery and love them into the center. Richard was a caring person who loved everyone around him on his camping trips, on poker nights, at JCUA, in the shul and his family, and beyond. He would look for whoever was left out and go straight to that person. Richard could not accept that anyone would feel like a stranger or an outsider. He wouldn't allow it. He lived our deepest values as a people with his every deed. 1, do justice. 2, love kindness. 3, walk with humility. 4, care for the earth. 5, respect your parents. 6, devote yourself to love. 7, teach your children. 8, take risks. 9, find happiness through service. 10, love the stranger. Richard Kosmacher lived a life of Torah. His body has left us, but his teaching never will. We will make Richard's memory a blessing by committing to live his values in perpetuity. In his name. Let's do that together. I'll invite everyone to rise as we say the words of El Malei Rachamim.
העולמים. שוכן במרומים, המסה מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים את נשמת ראובן בן קלמן ומלכה שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר amen.
O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on the Most High, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Richard Alan Kosmacher, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring Richard under the cover of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And we can say amen.
Amen.
I'd like to invite the pallbearers to step forward. Joe Grant, Fred Weber, Joe Grossman, Ian Morris, Steve Coleman, and Tom DeKoven.
בברתו יסך לך ותחת כנפיו תחצה, רינה ותותרה מטוב, לא תירא מפחד לילה, מחץ יעוף יומו, מדבר באוכל יהלום, מכתב ישו צהרה.